podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome everybody, this is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. As you can see, if you're watching a video podcast or YouTube, it's fall already. It's very, very close to the beginning of September, my most favorite time of the year. I'm wearing fall stuff and it's getting a little bit cooler here in Germany. That said, I do have a new guest, of course, for you guys. And I would like to remind you, if you like what you're seeing or listening, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're on YouTube, ring the bell icon. That said, I do have Sebastian here with me. Hey, welcome.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
We may tell the people that SleevesUp is your startup, but before we get there, tell us a little bit about you. So basically, how did you get into entrepreneurship? Because I've been stalking you a bit on LinkedIn. Of course, everybody who'd like to reach out, they'll find your LinkedIn profile down here in the show notes as a link. And you've been a graduate for bachelor's and the master's at Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, which is a private university originally set up by the big banks here in Frankfurt as a training ground for their talent for the future leadership people. So how did you go from being potentially the CEO of a large bank in the future to starting a co-working space?
Very interesting question, as you put it. I was after my high school. I was quite sure that I wanted to do something with business, and I was always found the whole finance topic very interesting. Next to obviously other parts of the classic business studies like strategic management and marketing and all these kind of things. And Frankfurt School of Finance and Management at that time was still rather new to the German business school scene, but had already a very good reputation. I gave it a try and did the general business administration studies. And during that time, I stopped by a bunch of different companies from all different kinds. So there was a bank, there was a advertising agency. And towards the end of my studies, it became quite clear to me that I really didn't want to go into a big corporation or anything, but wanted to be sort of my own boss, do my own thing, and become an entrepreneur. So that's why for myself, I started looking here and there what possibilities there are to become independent and start an own thing. And one of these trials was that during my master's degree, next to my studies, I already started a small bar catering business, sort of to practice entrepreneurship a little bit as a side business to my university. Where I could get my first experience with running a small business. But of course, this was not intended to be my main focus for the future. So I tried to, or had the opportunity to work with a small business angel network here in Germany for a while, which I did, where I was able to start a small spin-off company and work with other startups. And there really, it was really clear to me that at one point I really wanted to do an own company for myself, which then eventually led to the point where I'm today with SleevesUp.
When you go through your CV, it's very much finance focused, with one exception, because you've been an intern in something like one of the very large marketing and advertisement agencies. I was wondering, looking back now, what did you learn there that you could utilize? Would you recommend anybody who's looking for entrepreneurship and startup also to try out or learn a little bit in marketing or advertisement, or is it something completely different from startups?
What I was able to learn and pick up in the big marketing agency, which Ogilvy is one of the bigger agencies in the world. Actually, belongs to big ad agency network. But still, working there was really the working culture was really sort of fostering a creative process, right? And that's pretty much what the all entrepreneurial process is all about, right? Being creative on all kinds of different levels, meaning you have to be creative in coming up with the business idea in the first place. You have to find new ways in how to execute that. And marketing, especially in the marketing and advertising field, it's always about, finding a new claim or somehow pitching a new advertising idea to clients. So it's really, even though you're in a big corporation, when you work in an ad agency, you are really exposed to very entrepreneurial processes, because from every new client that you have to win, in a new pitch, it's always like pitching your own new business idea or pitching an own new idea. And that's really close to bringing a new product or a new idea to the market. You also have to pitch it to many potential customers and see who buys it in the end of the day. And that's pretty much what's marketing all about, right? Bringing a product or an idea to market, find some people who are willing to pay for that. And so that's, I guess, was a very important experience for me during the time at the ad agency, yeah.
What I personally discovered, and I do repeatedly almost every day by working with startups, is they are describing themselves, we call what we do blah, 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 blah. And you have totally no clue what they are doing. So making something like your world of thinking, your train of thought, accessible for a second person, for another person to board your train of thought is, I do believe, something very, very important. And if you learned that, you learned a lot, right?
Yes, absolutely. And a very important learning is in bringing something to market or make people understand what you are doing in the first place, and then eventually buy what you're doing, is to keep things simple. Yeah. And a tip that you very often hear is if you're able to explain something new to your grandmother or your grandfather and they will understand it, then you framed it correctly, right? And then you probably found something that many people understand and eventually consider buying. So a very important learning, not only during the time at the marketing agency, but in general, is often that the simplest idea are the most promising ones. And even if you find something very complex or very innovative, very new, you have to find a way to make it simple. You have to find a way to put it in simple words and find a simple way, few words to make people to have people understand it. Because if you do it complex, if you need too many words to describe something, you probably won't fail in the market, because it takes too long for potential customers to understand what you're doing. And usually you only have the very few first seconds to convince people. And during that time, you have to be very clear what you're doing and why people should consider your product.
What always comes to my mind is a story allegedly from Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the United States. He has been working with a subordinate, and the person was trying to get a letter together, a very important one. And Kissinger always wrote back, is there something you would change? And something like the fifth or sixth attempt, the person wrote back, no, there's not even one letter I would change anymore. And Kissinger replied, okay, then I will start reading it. And that's exactly what you're thinking about, what you have to think about. Try it, especially put yourself outside of yourself and just explain it to somebody really else. your significant other or someone like this, I found this extremely helpful, because if you can explain it to someone who's not even in the startup scene, you found something very interesting, very likely. Getting from this point, my listeners already know I'm the king of detours. Getting from this point back to your life. So you've been a promising finance guy. You've been in marketing, and then at one point being WeWork already very big, having also in Frankfurt guys like the International Mindspace, Tribals, Regos, which is also a big competitor of WeWork, US based, all in Frankfurt and Rhine-Main. There are more than 80 co-working spaces there. You decided to start also a co-working space. How on earth did you go for this, and how did you convince any investor?
Well, the decision to start a co-working space already goes back a little further, which was already in 2016. When or even a little bit earlier than that, when I was starting my first real startup after my master's degree. A bunch of friends and I got together and really tried to do something in the hospitality field, a new tech solution for that. And of course, we also needed office space, right? A small floor where we could have our desks and really start working on our company, because working from the kitchen or from the living room doesn't really work out in the long term. So what we tried was to, and that was already in 2014 actually. We went out and looked for office space, and at that time, the big players, the big coworkers like WeWork, Mindspace weren't really around already. There were a very few very small coworkers back then, which weren't really a very good professional solution for us. And of course, office centers or business centers like Regus, you always had in mind like the a little bit boring premises nearby the airport, and of course very expensive. Yeah, so that wasn't really an alternative for us either. So what we did was really look for an own office, which we found rather cheap still in Frankfurt in Rödelheim, and we put in our own furniture. We made everything work: internet, coffee machine, etc., and started working, right? But the problem was that, of course, we had ambitious plans and rented a floor that was a little bit too big for our actual needs, right? So at one point we decided, what are we going to do with the empty floor that we have left over from our own need? So we said, come on, let's try. We just rented out desk-wise. Yeah, co-working at that time was already very popular in Berlin. So when you're close to the startup scene, you pick up the general idea, and so we applied it to Frankfurt, where co-working as such wasn't really a big phenomenon yet. And what was really interesting was that it really picked up from the first day. We had demand. We never did any advertising or so. We just got listed on a few internet sites, and people started requesting desk from our location, even though it was like very, very basic at that point of time. And I found that quite interesting, and from there it took off. And at the same time, my first startup didn't really work out, unfortunately, so we closed that down. My friends did something else, and I decided to stick with this co-working idea. Did a second location here in Frankfurt, this time in the east of Frankfurt, which also worked out very nicely. No advertising spending or no big marketing, etc. Just pure demand from the market, which showed that obviously the product that we have, really flexible, affordable, but at the same time trying to make it structured and professional, appealed to a certain customer base. And what I also found very interesting was that not only, as one would expect, startups and freelancers and the typical co-working space clients came to us, but many small, just classic small business, very conservative small business people, engineers, architects, small agencies, and all these kind of people. So I thought, hey, I looked at the market a little closer, and by the time WeWork and Mindspace and all the big players really moved into Germany, and I looked at their offer, I thought, hey, this is like really, really too expensive. And who on earth, which founder, which small business on earth can pay 500, 600 euros per desk in the long term for their office? Of course, they have a very professional, high-end product, all these players. But what was really missing was also a professional but affordable product for the SME market, so small business, right? And that brought me to the idea to really structure our business model a little more and find a way to bring the idea of affordable, professional, flexible office space to a broad customer base, and which not only sits right in the center of Frankfurt or other big cities in Germany, Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, but who also are a little further spread out in smaller cities, right? So we went ahead and came up with the new brand SleevesUp, which is of course the brand for entrepreneurs and people who really roll their sleeves up and start doing. And we started a couple of spaces in a couple of smaller cities in Germany, which all work the same. You have the same standardized product on a professional level, but we bring the solution of flexible professional office space to the broader area in Germany, I would say, and not only make people come to the city centers of the big metropolis.
Let me kind of wrap my head around this. From my understanding, it would be something like you are serving the clients who don't need to be like dead in the city center, like all the big competitors who can come by car or something like that, but still want to have a very professional office and also looking a little bit more at the price than everybody who would go straight into the city center, because being in the city center is convenient, but also a pricing stuff. But for most startups, I do believe the location, if you're in the city center or if you're on the outskirts, is not really a necessary decision unless you're in retail or something like this with a high customer frequency. It's rather a little bit more about the prestige, right?
Yes, absolutely. And prestige is something that probably becomes important for a startup at a later point in time. And I absolutely don't mind my customers growing in our SleevesUp premises to a certain point where they say, okay, I'm now at a certain size, or at a certain, I have an international customer base or whatever. I need to move downtown and have really a super representative high-end office in the city center of Frankfurt or Berlin or wherever. Our customers are usually way before that status, right? So what's important for them is of course, we live in a digital world. They need a fast and stable internet connection, of course, and they need some kind of professional standard in their office. So they need professional furniture. They need representative areas where they can invite customers, where they can bring employees and so on. But for our customers, what's really important is to have an area where they can focus on their productivity. They don't really request hammocks or any kind of two big lounge areas, or a cafe and a barista and a draft beer and all these kind of things that you find at other places. For our customers, what's important is really to have a professional office where you can get work done, right? So that's what we are actually focusing our product on. And that's why our spaces become really efficient and really cost efficient too, because we really focus on a lean office approach. Not too many features and gimmicks around that. But for our customers, it's important they come in, they need a functioning professional office, and that's it. And they're happy if they can get their work done in the least amount of time and don't want to sit around until 8, 9, 10 p.m. Because usually our customers have a private life after their office life too. So they're happy if they really have their focus in their office, get their work done, and then eventually can go home at some point of time too, right? And also what's important, they usually don't live in the city center. They live somewhere around the big cities, and they don't want to drive into the city every day during rush hour. So we by bringing our office spaces to the outskirts, we really save people time too, because they don't have to get stuck in rush hour every day for an hour and a half or so. They just have a 10-minute commute to the nearby office space and can go home very quickly too. So it's really, our product is really focused on the actual needs of the office user at the end of the day.
What I also remember from what you've been talking about is going to smaller cities. That means you're kind of targeting not only the outskirts of the really tier 1 cities like Frankfurt, Berlin, and so on and so forth, but you also are looking at tier 2, tier 3 cities where there's also demand for co-working, but may not be big enough for one of the big players. Is that true?
Absolutely. In fact, that's our main approach to the market. In our growth strategy, we're not really targeting the tier 1 cities, the A+ cities in Germany at the moment, which would be Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, of course, because there's already also a very big supply of flex office solutions. So what we're trying to do is going into the tier 2, tier 3 cities that do also, of course, have a demand, because entrepreneurship is everywhere. It's not only in Berlin. Of course, there you have all the tech startups, but the classic entrepreneur, the self-employed guy and girl, of course, you pretty much have everywhere. And why should we force people to move to or commute into the top cities every day only to have the advantage of flexible office space? No, we want to bring the advantages of flexible, affordable offices to pretty much everywhere. And that's why we brought already spaces to smaller cities like Hannover, Aachen, Gießen, starting up one in Darmstadt right now. We really see a customer base there too, and a lot of demand, but not so much supply. Because if you look at the very big competitors, for them, since they operate on a very big cost structure, as I mentioned, barista and all these kind of people that make the office user happy. We are able to run quite small scale spaces of 1,000 to 1,500 square meters very efficiently and profitable. Other players in the market have to open spaces that are at least 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square meters very often to become profitable, to have the necessary size. And of course, a small city like, I would say, Gießen, it would be very difficult to open up 5,000 square meters of co-working space at once and really filling that up. But with our approach, starting with 1,000 square meters there, filling that up happens quite quickly, and then we see where it goes.
I see. For all the Americans out there, 1,000 square meters or something like 3,000 square feet, if I remember correctly. And I have two more questions in mind. One of them would be, we know a lot of investors are listening to this podcast out of the something like 200,000 subscribers. What would be interesting for me, and of course for them, maybe they even approach you about it, would be how large of like terms of cities, how many cities do you guys see potential for extending to, like only in Germany?
As you said, for our next growth stage, we will focus especially on the German market because we understand the German customer very well. So German Mittelstand is sort of the target group that we're aiming at. And we did a little bit of research. And of course, there are less and more attractive tier 2 cities in Germany. But we identified between 80 and 100 potential cities. And out of that, we currently have about 20 on our short list for the near-term expansion. But the overall target is really to bring SleevesUp space with its flex office solution to at least one per every city in Germany that has at least 100,000 citizens or inhabitants. Yeah. So that's pretty much the target market that we're talking about.
And you're looking for external investors for that?
Well, let me put it like this. At the moment, we're still pretty much bootstrapped to a large extent because we were able to get classic bank financing for most of our cases. We do have a small investment of friends and family round, sort of, from our very first days. That should cover the ramp-up costs of bringing the first couple of spaces to market, right? But at the end of the day, our business case is not too far away from a classic real estate investment case. But of course, we do want to grow a little stronger than we did in the past over the next years. And we will have to see if the classic bank loan for that still applies, or if we can maybe grow a little quicker, if we get more startup or if we can secure some kind of investment that's more typical for a startup, right? That consists, of course, also of an equity ticket, but sort of the main financing source for our growth will be, or is predetermined to be, is classic debt case, because we're talking about sort of a one-time investment and then steady reoccurring income, which is typical for debt financing.
I had to smile. I can tell you, you have the potential to be politician if SleevesUp never works out. Bottom line for all the investors listening to you, you're open to venture capital and prop tech investors. We are recording this still in the time of Corona at the 31st of August. And I was wondering, of course, we had to talk about how you got through the crisis. And just between you and me and a few 100,000 listeners out there, when Germany was shut down, when you saw it on TV or heard it on radio, did you need a change of underwear?
Luckily, I did not, although the uncertainty in the very beginning was, of course, very high also for us. We did have some cancellations, of course, because some of our customers weren't able to sustain their business during Corona times. But most of them who were actually able to proceed with their business are actually really appreciating the flexibility that they have with our model. Since the cancellation notice times for our offices are between 1 and 3 months. So many of our customers just said, hey, we're also not sure how things will work out, but in case, shit hits the fan, we're able to cancel our office within 1 month. So our customers really didn't have to cancel ahead of time just to make sure they don't run out of cash in the long run. Yeah, so that was quite okay. So our business there was quite sustainable. But of course, during March and April, we did have a backdrop in new requests, because basically all of the market remained steady and waited what would happen. But what's really interesting is that starting of May, demand really picked up stronger than ever for our offices, because many people, I guess, noticed, hey, we somehow have to keep moving, we have to keep working. And suddenly this whole flex office model, where you don't have to sign a 10-year lease anymore, becomes very interesting for many people that say we live in uncertain times. We need flexibility in the short run. We don't know what will happen in 6 months or 12 months. This flexible office model that we offer suddenly becomes very interesting for a large base of customers.
I see. And you guys are based in Frankfurt. Why are you guys based in Frankfurt, and what do you like about the place?
Well, we're based in Frankfurt simply because I'm from Frankfurt. I was born here and I know the market very well. And I guess that's probably also the main reason why we started here in the first place and decided to grow SleevesUp out of Frankfurt, because we pretty much know the market and the nearby markets very well, and at least a lot better than, for example, Berlin or Hamburg, even though Frankfurt, of course, is quite expensive already. But our main focus for future growth is not in the city of Frankfurt anymore. Of course, if we find a good opportunity, we might open 1 or 2 more spaces here too. But our focus is to grow out of the Frankfurt and Rhine-Main area into the nearby smaller cities, first of all, and then out of that circle to the rest of Germany.
That is good to know. Before we end this interview, before I have to say goodbye, because we're recording already more than 35 minutes by now. I know forecasts are always difficult, especially concerning the future. But I've seen a lot of talks and discussions, mainly focused around New York right now, but they of course apply everywhere else, that a lot of the companies, the banks, the insurance companies, the whatever, if you don't need to be physically present, a lot of them realizes, of course, we have people working from home. They are most of the time more productive, and we don't need to rent a lot of very expensive office space. What is your take right now, end of August, very early in Corona, very early when we see the first traces of that? What would be your take for the long-time implication for commercial real estate? I would guess that something like 20 to 30% of big tenants will go vacant in the next 1 to 5 years. What would be your opinion, your perspective on that?
Well, it's of course hard to forecast or predict any numbers or figures. In general, I believe that the commercial real estate, especially the office industry, will change quite drastically, because suddenly people have realized that home office actually works for many employees, right? But at the same time, there's also the discussion, will home office be such a big deal in the future or not? Of course, or let me put it like this, I expect to be the whole structure of an employee's office way more differentiated. Of course, there will be a certain share of employees who will prefer to come to the main office, to the headquarters of the company or whatever, right? So the classic office approach. But at the same time, there will be a share of employees who will prefer to work from home if they have a good infrastructure there. Not everybody, though, has a good infrastructure at home to really get work done professionally. Often there's distraction from kids and other sources. Often you don't have a proper desk, proper chair, proper internet connection, etc. At least here in Germany, often the internet connection still is an issue, unfortunately. But at the same time, people would always value a proximity to their home, right? As I mentioned earlier, long commutes probably is something that nobody really likes. So I believe everybody would appreciate an office which would be closer to their home, meaning a shorter drive home after work or to work, not being stuck in traffic, etc. So I believe more of a hybrid structure, and not the term the right to use a home office, but more the term the right to choose your workstation will be much more relevant in the future, and probably many companies will see the benefits as well to grant their employees the right to choose where they want to work from. And in this situation, I believe our model of professional yet flexible workspaces, which is decentralized, not only in the city centers, but which you can find pretty much everywhere, will become very interesting, because here we combine the benefits of a home office and a professional corporate office. So an employee might say, okay, I do want to have a professional focused office atmosphere, which they can find at our premises, of course. But at the same time, I don't want the long commute into downtown city. I want to go pick up my kids from school, maybe, yeah. And that's why we want to bring our office to the people, to the area, and not only focus on the city centers. And that's pretty much the image of the corporate real estate, of the office world for the future, that at least I have in my mind, where we will see many more flexible models and more freedom of an employee to choose where they want to work from.
Great last words. There's nothing I would add. It was a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck for SleevesUp, and of course we will follow up in some time and let everybody know how you guys are doing. Thank you very much. It was just a pleasure having you as a guest.
Thank you very much too. Pleasure was a pleasure for me to be here, and yeah, talk to you soon in the future, hopefully.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.Startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.